So here we go, starting all over again. New material.
The future is coming on, it's coming on, it's coming on, it's coming on.
Welcome to a new show. We're testing out the new studio here in Santa Cruz downtown. It's not our studio, it's the station studio. Hence, we're a little late because there are a lot of passwords and things that were just not installed.
You know, every time we come down, it's a whole new adventure and novelty. Yeah. And we had a minute and a half to figure out a whole new setup. And unfortunately, here we are. It took us till now.
We have backups.
15 minutes.
And we have Bobby on in the background.
Yeah. We haven't managed to patch Bobby in directly for our show today.
Hi, yeah.
Our trip was wonderful. We love traveling, and we love visiting Al's mom in Montreal. We had a great time going through our swim around the lake at our friend's house and celebrating Mom's 94th birthday.
Happy birthday, Mom.
How old is she? She's 94?
94.
She is now.
Around the sun.
Yeah.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah. It is. She's incredible.
Yeah, it was a great trip, and friends and family explored more of Canada. Went to a great place called Montebello, which is probably the largest log cabin hotel you'll ever see in your life. Beautiful Fairmont hotel. Beautiful weather the whole time. The lake water was like 80 degrees when we were swimming up there. Just beautiful.
Yeah.
And I had a chance to check out drone in the water and also to put a light show on experiments where we're seeing how many lights a drone can carry for doing a light show. A single drone, not hundreds of drones, a single drone. And had great success with that. And I'm very elated, and I'm going to continue that in Maui in a couple of days.
It kind of looked like a UFO.
Yeah, well, that's the idea. You know, we want to create our own versions of UFOs with the drone. For those of you who are not familiar with this is the idea of how to create a drone that can do a light show without having to have a whole bunch of drones, just one drone. We're seeing how we can max out on that. So far, I've got about 30 lights.
30 lights?
30 lights. And I just got a new kit of lights that are individually addressable. So I can start creating a matrix of lights where perhaps, ideally, I'd be able to translate, say, a picture from an iPhone into a low-resolution image of somebody and have the drone display that image of a person in the air. That's my holy grail. I'm an experiment.
Oh, now you're getting the echo off of Bobby's feed, right?
Yeah.
I tell you, this modern technology, there's so many...
Feedback.
There's so many machines talking to so many machines.
Yeah, Bobby, we hear your speaker there.
This is time travel of the audio kind, the audio dimension.
Yeah.
I think it's coming out of the speaker of your phone there.
Oh, so one of us have the station up? I don't think it's me. Hilarious.
And when I turn down your volume, it goes down.
Yeah, it's you. It's you, Bobby. Where is that voice coming from? All right, now we are razzle-dazzling on our way to getting to some very interesting space news that Alan has prepared for us today, and I think we want to jump over to that, don't you think?
Yeah.
I like the conversation about the Chicxulub crater.
Oh, that's
and
the dinosaurs.
Research.
That's the idea that we the extinction event of the dinosaurs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's 66 million years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was an interesting article. One of the mysteries about that meteor was, where did it come from?
Good question. From
the inner solar system or the outer solar system?
Yeah, it never occurred to me to ask that question until we read this article today. I wasn't really thinking about whether the meteors that caused extinction of the dinosaur came from the inner solar system or the outer solar system. That's a really modern kind of question.
You think?
Yeah. I can remember being on a trip with a friend of mine who didn't even know the difference between a comet and a meteor. Right? We've come a long way in my life in terms of having a higher awareness of what's going on in outer space and what kinds of rocks are floating up there in the ocean of energy known as space.
Yeah. Well, in this case, the evidence suggests that there are two types of asteroids that hit the Earth quite frequently. and that this is I believe it's called an S-type asteroid, or C-type.
No,
C-type.
this is C, like Chicxulub.
Yeah, C,
Yeah.
for the Chicxulub asteroid. It's like a much rarer type of asteroid to be hitting than the S-type, which comes from the inner solar system. This seems to come from the outer solar system. So the question was, well, how in the world does an outer solar system asteroid get so close to the Earth?
Yeah.
The latest theories is that during planetary formation, Jupiter was migrating from the outer part of the solar system into the inner part of the solar system, coming in. And in the process, it brought a bunch of big rocks with it.
Oh, so just the drag of Jupiter's gravity field.
It whipped a few of the older outer asteroids into the inner.
So this is kind of a new insight about this asteroid, and the scientists haven't really determined that this is true. They just think that they're looking at the elements that are the signature of this crater from the Chicxulub catastrophe.
Right.
And that element is not associated with the kinds of asteroids that are floating around on the inner part of the solar system.
That's right.
It's associated with the asteroids coming from
outer.
outside.
And usually you don't see as many because they're from the outer. They're just not there. But when the ones that do come in typically are ones that burn up in the atmosphere. S-types are as a more common. C-types burn up more easily than S-types. So most of the ones that we see are S-types.
Right, yeah. And the C we don't see because they burn faster.
They burn up faster, right, and they're less common.
And yet, the one that extincted the dinosaur was remarkable. It was huge. It got all the way to the Earth. It created a giant crater. It changed the weather on Earth for countless years and decades.
That's right. It was around for a long time, and then it changed everything on Earth. So,
Right.
So what does that tell you?
Right. So anyway, I guess that's the research, is that there's this element signature to these outer solar system asteroids.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like that one.
Yeah.
What's also interesting is the Psyche asteroid. More information on Psyche. Psyche is kind of an interesting asteroid because it's the metal asteroid we've all heard about.
Sure.
Big, giant metal asteroid that could completely crash the precious metals market if we started mining it and bringing it here.
Right. That can mess with our psyche.
Yeah, mess with us really bad. It really change everything, wouldn't it?
It would.
We've got a mission going there. It's on its way. It's going to take another few years. It's about almost a third of the way there now, called the Psyche mission. Oh, good. Thanks, Billy. A loud and clear signal out there now. That's great. Okay. Now, the interesting thing about this asteroid is that we have the James Webb Space Telescope aimed at it right now and collecting a lot of data about it before our probe gets there. And it's finding out some interesting things.
Do tell.
One is that it's rusting.
Psyche is rusting.
Psyche is rusting.
And we have a rusting asteroid in the asteroid belt.
Rusting away.
Giant asteroid.
No.
Big
needs a good polish.
Rust bucket.
Yes, and it's and the new telescope data suggests that rust is collecting on its surface, and that the signature for it is hydroxyls, bonded oxygen and hydrogen atoms. This is the chemical signature that's been detected on the Psyche, and it often is a sign of rust. And beyond that, this relatively interesting finding, they're curious about, well, if it's rusting, how did the water get there to make it rust?
Yeah, that's what this article is all about, right?
Yeah, the WTF.
And where's the water?
Where do those hydroxyls come from?
Yeah, we have a metal asteroid and it's rusting, but where's the water?
Yeah.
There's no water out there in space.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are they saying about that?
Well, the evidence is suggesting that Psyche, like the Chicxulub asteroid, did not come from the inner asteroid belt. It originated somewhere further out, out the outer part of the solar system. That it's not from Mars.
Around here.
Jupiter area. Not from around here, right. And then it somehow arrived at its current location. They have been speculating about it for a while because it kind of looks like it might have been the leftovers of a planetary core. That there might have been some collisions and that a planet got blasted apart and that this is part of its inner core that's just floating in the asteroid belt. So studying the Psyche is very interesting because first, it's metal and it's also not where it would appear to have come from. Mm-hmm. So what they think is that it probably came from the outer
asteroid belt.
Beyond the asteroid belt.
Right. The outer solar system.
The outer solar system at this point. And there's something called the snow line that exists in the solar system. And the snow line is where water under the direct rays of the sun stays as a solid or a liquid, where it becomes liquid. The snow line is where it stays solid.
Okay.
And there's a distance that you need to be from the sun before water stays solid
all the time. Like obviously we're inside.
Yeah, we're
closer than
zone.
the snow line, but there are planets where even the warmest part of the planet facing the sun is always frozen.
Always frozen, yeah.
Right.
That's further out. That's like the outer planets, Saturn.
But it starts somewhere in the asteroid belt. That's about the physical distance.
That's right.
So the sun can melt ice until somewhere in the middle of the asteroid belt.
Right.
Then it's just too cold.
And it looks like Psyche is inside the snow line here where it is liquid water.
That's how come it can rust.
Yeah.
Otherwise it would freeze.
And the amount of rust would indicate how long it's been on the inner solar system. Uh-huh. So that's what they're analyzing now. They're trying to figure out how long has it been in its current trajectory.
Right. And when you read these articles that you pick out, you really learn a lot about how astronomers are looking into space, because this whole conversation about rust on asteroid Psyche is coming from just one of the spectral lines that let the scientists know what light is coming off of that asteroid. And from that light, they then deduce what chemicals are there. And in this case, they just called it hydroxyl.
Hydroxyl groups, yes.
Hydroxyl groups indicate rust.
Bonded oxygen and hydrogen atoms.
Right. So it's rust, but not water, according to this light signature.
Right. Right.
You got to be thinking. You got to scratch your head a lot when you're looking up at space if you want to know the details.
And hydroxyls combined with metal on the asteroids form rust.
Well, what do you know? Rusty asteroids. Who'da thunk? I'd like to know about Siri, because Siri is the one that's looks like it has two eyeballs and it's looking at us, right? That asteroid.
Sirius, yeah.
Sirius. Yes. Uh-huh. I wonder if the shiny Sirius is also rusting or not. They're both made of metal, obviously.
No, Sirius, that's water. That's a water molecule. That's a water one.
Okay.
They think there's more water on Sirius than there is on Earth.
Okay.
So it could be really good for Mars. Mm-hmm. Since Mars is a bit of a fixer-upper planet, it doesn't have much of an atmosphere. If you wanted a lot of water, right nearby,
get a pipeline to Sirius.
Yeah, just move Sirius over there.
Mars is pretty much the closest planet to the asteroid belt, right?
That's right.
It's halfway between Mars and Jupiter.
Yeah.
All right.
Can they find water underground, almost like a mile underground? There's a lake of water on Mars recently.
I haven't heard about that, but that would be interesting. Yeah. Liquid water on Mars?
Yes, but it's underground, unfortunately. Oh. And they don't have any drills just yet to tap it.
Oh, is it like the data suggests that there's liquid water there? That they haven't been able to actually see it yet. The seismic maybe suggests it exists, so.
We see remnants of these river valleys and canyons that were carved out by water, but we don't see them now. But they think there was water on the surface, but now it's gone underground.
Yeah. No, I haven't heard about that, Bobby. Maybe you can find that article on it. That'd be interesting.
I'll look for that.
All right. Well, listen, while you're looking and we're about to change gears, let's have a little Santa Cruz Voice sponsors. Right. Voices. Okay.
Let's do it, Mrs. Pruitt.
All right.
You need a clean, pleasant space to conduct business, but you don't want the burden of a long, expensive lease. Your solution is Satellite Co-working and Digital Media Studio on Soquel Avenue. Satellite offers private offices, meeting and conference rooms, even co-working by the hour, day, week, or month. Schedule a tour at satellitecoworking.com. Mention Santa Cruz Voice for 20% off your first reservation.
Deer fins, wood fins, livestock, chain link, vinyl, iron fins, Cypress coast fence, Cypress Coast Fence.
My name is Stephen Bigger. My wife and I live in Royal Oak. When my wife and I were looking to find someone to build our fence, Cypress Coast Fence was highly recommended. It was amazing. These folks are masters at their craft. They're super professional. They came in when they said they were going to come in. They finished when they said they were going to finish. The fence is perfect for our needs, everything they said it was going to be, and then some.
Give us a call for your no-obligation consultation at 831-783-1500 or at cypresscoastfence.com.
We don't just build fences, we make good neighbors.
Deer fence, wood fence, livestock, chain link, vinyl, iron fence. Cypress Coast Fence. Cypress Coast Fence.
When you need help managing the legal affairs of your family, call on the Angel.
Hello, I am attorney Angel Hess, and I am ready to help. Whether you need a prenuptial agreement or divorce settlement, need child or spousal support, or are facing custody issues or visitation rights, I will help you. I have more than 7 years' experience as a family law attorney.
When you need help, call on the Angel. Attorney Angel L. Hess at santacruzlegal.net.
What else do we want to do here?
There's the XAI released Grok 2 this last week. It adds image generation to good old X.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, indeed. It's powered by Black Forest Labs Flux One. Grok 2 generates images directly on X.
Mm.
Now, what's interesting about that is that we have a lot of image-to-text generators now. Quite a few of them. We use a few ourselves. I like Artflow. I like Runway. However, this one is interesting in that it doesn't have as many restrictions on the images that you can generate. You can create, for example, faces of famous people. You can make fun of the elections, for example, all the characters in the elections. The guardrails just aren't in place. And that's probably due to Elon's influence, thinking that image generators should be flexible and more free of censoring, which kind of has to go in that direction.
Well, I mean, they have to cover the costs of running the machines.
Yeah.
There are data centers involved in AI processing.
Yeah.
But it should be pretty cheap per image.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there are all these restrictions in place. Like, I mean, how many times have we been on YouTube and they can't show an explosion of a bridge or something like that because of restrictions that YouTube has placed on showing images. And it's even more restrictive in terms of the images you can generate. And so many of the images that we see in movies would not be allowed through these image generators. You know, you're not allowed to see things blowing up. You're not allowed to see people dying. You're not, there's not allowed to show disasters to any great extent or anything too sexy. You know, all the things people are interested in have guardrails. So it's interesting that Grok 2 has a significant step forward in giving you more free ability to create imagery. Of course, that rises the specter of creating completely fake images, which we're starting to hear now. Like, for example, in the news today was how there are images being generated showing Swifties for Trump. And everyone knows that Taylor Swift is more of a Democrat. So Swifties for Trump is wrong. It's just not right. And then apparently there's a shot of someone has Uncle Sam saying that we should vote for Trump because Taylor Swift says so. So
apparently she's going to sue him around that, right?
Yeah, she might. There's more and more legislation coming in, mostly on the state level, of trying to control deep fakes and cheap fakes. Anything that uses an image of someone that's recognizable without their permission, you can sue them. Because I don't think that legislation is going to go anywhere either. That is in an attempt by our politicians to control this freedom of image generation that we're currently experiencing.
Could it be under the category of humor? Like, Saturday Night Live makes images of people and pretends they're other people, and it's humor, and they can get away with it.
Well,
right.
Fair use is very different than intentional fake, right? If it's clear that it's not real, then you have an argument to be made that it's just free speech. But if it's not clear and you have AIs being used to trick people to vote for a different candidate because they're fans of Taylor Swift, then that's where we draw the line. That's not free speech. That's deception.
It's going to be redefined. I think that's an important issue, Bobby. The fair use of this requires some introspection in order to see what the answer is for a lot of ideas. One person's humor is another's idea of what's sick. So.
But that's humor too.
Yeah, to a certain point. Yeah. So there you go. See, that's another where evaluations need to be made, and who's going to do it? Who's in charge?
The likes of us? No.
Who's in charge of the restrictions that we place on our media?
Who's in charge?
Yeah,
I wish so many people didn't think they were in charge.
Well, there's always going to be that. Every generation has people who want to be in charge and people who want to make rules, another bunch of people that want to get rid of rules.
Yeah, right.
And on it goes.
On and on. Yeah. Right.
So Musk's AI company is planning to make these new models available to developers through its enterprise API later this month. And these lack of guardrails of political figures, especially in the election series that we're in now. Wow, this is going to be fun. Keep an eye open for lots of fake imagery.
I think there's going to emerge from this time a more intelligent conversation about how to effectively have good free speech instead of slime free speech. There is an inherent intelligence that can be embraced about how to get our machines to give us what we really want instead of just garbage, instead of prioritizing garbage. There's not enough conversation about how much the profit motive is what is distorting our media, because the people who are trying to make money in media need to grab your eyeballs and force you to look at things and force you to click on things. And so they just go for your lower instincts.
And it takes millions of views in order to make any significant amount of money.
Right. And yet that's not really who we are as a people. It's not what we want. I mean, certainly there's always the car crash effect where you're driving by, you want to look at the thing that is disturbing. But in terms of getting our communication systems to work properly, we are not flooded with misinformation as we talk to each other. Why should our enhanced forms of communications be flooded with things we don't want to pay attention to? We have to get smarter about it, and the machines should be able to help us get smarter about it.
Yeah, they should.
There should be an AI detector of AI images that and facts that aren't true, a fact checker on your phone.
That's like an of course, because the more of the media that goes through the AIs and the more of the computerized aspect of our consciousness goes through the AIs, the more they are going to be given the authority to do things that right now we're asking people to do. So we're going to be programming ways for the AIs to discern what should get priority and what shouldn't. And right now we're leaning on people who are outraged at the negative content, and we're giving them the power of censorship, and we're having a conversation about free speech. But if you expand theoretically into the future, we have so much information and we have so many tools for sharing that information, and we're just working as fast as we can to come up with ways to make that media architecture serve us the way we want. So that's the real conversation here, and we don't want to shut it down because a certain part of the public always wants to control what everybody else says. We want to preserve the American values that free speech means I get to say what I think and you don't have to agree with me, and we're all equal in the eye of the divine creator. Whatever put us here in a context that is larger than any individual. As an optimist, I put forth that we just have to fix it, not worry about it. Just keep making it better.
Just keep tweaking.
Keep tweaking. Don't give
up. It's
a
never-ending tweak.
Make it better.
If you stop tweaking, it's obsolete.
That's right.
It's obsolete. If it works, it's already obsolete.
Right.
Because the edge is just beginning to work.
Who said that?
Marshall McLuhan. Right.
Yeah. If it works, it's obsolete.
Into that idea. If it works, it's obsolete.
Don't get stuck. Forward.
Like this podcast technology. It doesn't quite work, but it kind of works enough but it's still primitive.
Which technology?
The podcast technology.
Oh, the podcast, yeah. Oh, man. It's a little overwhelming to us mere humans because we have to plug in so many goofy machines to get them all to do their part.
But in this logic, if it works, it's obsolete. So it's not quite working, so it's not obsolete.
Oh, yay!
So we're state of the art here.
Once again, we're on the bleeding edge.
If you're not hearing things going wrong, you're missing it.
There you go. That's why you gotta love our show because we'll show you where the edge is.
Yeah, it's not quite working right yet, but when it does, it'll be obsolete.
Okay, I believe you.
That's where it's perfect.
I believe you.
A microsecond or two.
It might just be an excuse for getting here a little late and realizing that the presets have changed, but it's also the way it is.
Well, what I like is Bucky's autobiography. I think it was called "I Seem to Be a Verb." Always changing.
Right.
So there's of always changing stories this week. There's something right up your alley, Bobby, that I thought was interesting. It was an article on a molecule that reverses Alzheimer.
Yeah, that was...
Yeah. You read that one, huh?
Yeah. There's parts of the brain that runs very fast, and there's a chemical called GABA that actually calms the brain and slows it down and reduces these gamma frequencies, which are in the 40 hertz range, like 40 cycles a second.
Yeah, like a cat's purr, I believe they said.
Yeah, if you can get in that gamma zone, then you can think clearer, and it can remove some of the aspects of Alzheimer's.
Yes, and this is gamma brainwaves, not gamma rays, like in nuclear radiation, gamma brainwaves.
These can be sound or light vibrations at 40 hertz, 40 cycles a second. What they do is there's glial cells, and when they start resonating in unison, then the brain works very clearly. And Alzheimer's patients have too much gamma, which inhibit this unison oscillation in the brain.
So you want more gamma
frequencies. You want more gamma frequencies, but you want less of this GABA. G-A-B-A.
Puts the brake on the gamma
molecule. And so they found an it reduces, it inhibits.
GABA breaks gamma.
Yes, that's what it does.
GABA breaks gamma.
And that's good?
Well, no, you want more gamma.
Oh, I'm sorry. Gamma is what you want more of.
GABA will reduce it.
Oh, so GABA is bad.
Well, GABA is a brake. It's not bad. It's a brake.
It's an
inhibitor, as they say.
Okay.
Yeah.
The more GABA, the more Alzheimer's. The less GABA, the more gamma.
Yeah, you got it. It's like an MEO inhibitor.
Put that on a bumper sticker. Say that 3 times fast.
It's pretty interesting that this molecule, well, where is it from, though? This is a DDL920 molecule, which increases gamma by stimulating a part of the brain where gamma comes from.
Yeah, where do we get our DDL from?
Yeah.
It was discovered at UCLA.
Yeah, it says UCLA study. That's right.
So what, we hit the street in UCLA and just start asking around?
UCLA research, Dr. Istvan Mody, M-O-D-Y, and Dr. Vagis John, professor of neurology and director of the Drug Discovery Laboratory, the DDL, at the Mary Easton.
Oh, I was wondering what DDL stood
Alzheimer's
for.
Disease Research and Care. At
DDL, Drug Discovery Lab. I like it. Good name.
Drug Discovery Lab. It's
all right, so is it DDL 92? Is that what you said?
920. DDL -920.
Okay.
And it works
That's
differently
the code, folks.
from the FDA-approved drug. The drugs that they're doing, basically the drugs that have been approved remove harmful plaque that accumulates in the brain. And I think the new research has shown that Alzheimer's is not necessarily just related to the plaque.
Right. Well, what the plaque was doing was causing this gamma to fail to fire, right? And so that's why they were pursuing the plaque theory, and now they're pursuing a chemical stimulator instead.
Yeah, and they found that the plaque slowed the rate of cognitive decline, but it didn't restore any memory or cognitive impairments. Well, what's interesting about DDL920 is that it actually restores memory and improves cognition.
It sort of like gets your neurons dancing again.
Yeah,
right?
It's a reboot.
Yeah, it's your neurons' version of a rave drug. It gets it boogieing.
Yeah, what the theory was in the past was you have these proteins, and they've been misfolded, and they fold in half. And so the characteristics of that protein turns into a toxin. They're called beta amyloids. So it's the beta form of this amyloid protein. The drugs in the past would just remove those folded proteins, but it didn't fix the problem, is what happened. And so now these things where you have flashing lights at 40 hertz and sound and trying to get the glial cells to resonate, that seems to be the best way to restore memory in people. And so they found a drug that inhibits the GABA that can produce more gamma oscillations. And the gamma oscillation, the highest frequency rhythms of the brain, orchestrating brain circuits that underlie cognitive processes and memory, working memory, like your memory to be able to remember a phone number, for example.
Right. So when they are measuring brain waves, these are the brain waves that they measure when you're trying to remember something.
Gamma oscillations.
Yeah.
Better to have more.
Yes. There's other things you can do. You can eat or take the supplement lion's mane because it produces these chemicals that
increase gamma oscillations?
It doesn't necessarily increase gamma oscillations, but it does help remove some of the plaque. And it actually creates neurogenesis, so you can actually produce more brain cells.
Really?
Yeah.
It's not just a plaque remover, but it's also a brain cell creator?
Yes, new brain cells. Because whenever you make new connections, you actually create new brain cells in the brain that make new connections, and you can make,
really?
You can learn things.
So connections equal new brain cells.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of it can be attributed to, there's different things that can cause these amyloid buildups. It could be in the food, like I'll send you this little video about this Dr. Titus Chu. He's a neuroscientist, and he had problems with his brain, and it turned out to be a lot of allergies, like food allergies, was causing him brain fog, and he saw that there was a relationship to Alzheimer's with this, so that's another area that we should explore is what allergies you have.
Allergies can affect memory.
It could be simple things like the wheat that's in the United States as opposed to Europe. There's a difference in that type of wheat genetically and how it's being processed that could attribute to Alzheimer's also.
Yeah, I can see that, yeah. Also, I found fascinating that auditory, visual, or transcranial magnetic stimulation at a frequency of 40 hertz, similar to the cat's purr frequency, dissolves plaque in the brain.
Oh,
that's right.
Let me try that.
The brain doesn't have an immune system.
I'm dissolving plaque.
What it uses is it uses these glial cells, and the glial cells are little like vacuum cleaners, or they're filters, and they filter out these proteins that have been folded out of the brain. And in order to activate those glial cells, they resonate at 40 cycles. They don't resonate at 39. They don't resonate at 41. They resonate exactly at 40 cycles, and then they start working.
Interesting. I wonder why 40. What is that resonating exactly?
Again, there's these glial cells, and they're immune cells, but they're inside the brain. And they don't work together.
Is it stimulating their mitochondria, maybe?
You know, there's this whole idea that there's quantum consciousness, that, you know, there's actually these higher frequencies of light, and there's ultraviolet quantum light that goes down these microtubules inside of each of the neurons. So just think of a neuron going from one synapse to another neuron.
Like a tube.
And, you know, some of these neurons can be a foot long or longer, you know. Most of them are very short between the brain. But inside those tendrils is these microtubules. And the microtubules, they're actually activated by ultraviolet light, and you actually produce ultraviolet light inside the brain. And it's not coming endogenous. It doesn't come from outside the brain. It's actually produced inside the brain.
Yeah, I've heard of hammer off.
Yeah,
anyway,
that's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we got 2 minutes before our break, so let's wrap this up a little bit. I think the 40 hertz is a good takeaway as to Exactly how it works, I think we're still figuring that out. But something about 40 hertz exactly, as Bobby was saying. I guess that's kind of like how water, in a microwave vibrates at a very specific frequency for the microwave to work.
Yeah. Well, I think it's the beginning of starting to get into the science of which frequencies do we like as a biological entity who thinks, and which frequencies do we want to stay away from, like all the people who have the EMF sensitivity and things like that. We really need a whole new map of which frequencies we want more of and which ones we want less of. Right.
Auto filter it out and wear headphones all the time.
But 40 appears to feel good. All right. Well, I just want to let people know that the next hour we're going to be inviting a friend of ours, Ryan Sarnataro, to come
spark a conversation that's more politically oriented.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the presidential race and
being DNC yesterday,
and just what's going on in the American landscape and how to take it all in with a sense of humor and feel a little more informed.
Bobby used to be a delegate at one time, too, right, Bob? So you had some political background.
So hang tight, everybody, and we will be back before you know it here on the Future Now show.
Hey, welcome back to the show. Dr. and Mrs. Future and Bobby Wilder on the line here with Future Now.
Well, we watched the DNC last night. We listened to the Elon Musk hosted interview with Donald Trump. We watched the Republican National Convention.
Yeah, and we have opinions on all of it.
And we're tracking RFK Jr.
Yes, RFK Jr., which is another, I think Ryan's comes from that point of view.
Yes.
And how does the RFK point of view look? And how does it look at this whole situation? We always hear what's wrong with the RFK point of view in the sense, or it's being put down for bare brains, or
it's a textbook case of absolute Banana Republic propaganda, in that you can't get any, unless you are subscribed directly to the feeds that Robert F. Kennedy hosts. You will not get any information about what he's doing except for basically slander. You get the bear carcass story from Roseanne Barr. You get the ate a dog in the Philippines, the worm in his brain. Yeah. This is the only information that the supposed the people who are claiming that we have free speech are allowing out. And other than that, he's completely censored.
His family hates him.
Yeah. So
these all the memes there.
So all I can say is it's a good thing that we do have this vast distributed media, even though we have to go to our own little silo to get stories that are outside what the tech bros are allowing us to see.
So what are we doing? A little silo busting?
Yeah, a little silo busting.
Or weaving, silo weaving maybe?
Yeah, right. If you've been watching The Daily Show, some of the scholars of the modern media climate are saying the difference between misinformation and disinformation is that misinformation is where something is wrong or unfounded, but people pick it up in the rumor mill and run with it. And so it becomes misinformation because we don't know its truth, veracity, or origin, but we spread it anyway because it's interesting. Disinformation is information that has been intentionally seeded to mislead, and it has a science to it and a malevolence.
That's
and
good analysis, yeah. And
so,
what about Mr. Information? Does he have the truth? See the real intelligence behind this.
Mr.
Information.
It's a mystery.
This information. Mr. Information is who you want to talk to.
Well, Mr. Information, you can get a lot of good information from your website that you've been maintaining since 2009, the drfutureshow.com website. Yeah.
It goes back for 15 years.
Yeah.
I bet you if we put the AI on the shifting titles of stories over the years, it might be interesting.
Give them that assignment, huh?
Yeah.
To summarize the news according to the headlines that we've collected over this last decade.
Breakthroughs in AI might be a good search.
Yeah.
How does that change since?
Yeah, I'd be curious, when did the term artificial intelligence start being used?
Oh, well, that goes way back before our archives, Mrs. Future. That goes back to, I think, 1956 at Stanford.
Yeah?
those terms.
What do you know about it?
Google it. Check Copilot. Oh, that's the other thing is I've been using Copilot more lately. Very interesting alternative to Google search.
Mm-hmm.
And I would recommend trying it out. I've been finding that it understands natural language much easier than the normal search engines. You just ask whatever's on your mind, and it will give you an answer in plain English. So Copilot is an alternative to search, and try it out. I'll be curious what you think.
Yeah, we got turned on to Copilot by our friend Hal Myers, who really thinks it's the superior way to get the AI to answer your questions. The closest thing to the Knowledge Navigator in the original Apple commercial vision of it.
Yeah. And I was asking it some weirdly weird questions like, what kind of hardwood trees are indigenous to Tibet? Mm-hmm. Just ask it that, and it gives you an answer.
It literally figures it out.
It says, cherry oak.
It's not
Tibetan
like
cherry oak,
Siri and Google, who both say, I'm sorry, I can't help you with that.
You know, most of the trees in Tibet are pine. They were using hardwood to create the containers for ancient Tibetan scriptures. Mm-hmm. A lot of those scriptures were burnt or destroyed through fires, Chinese incursions, but the cases that they were in, which are also inscripted with information, survived. There's quite a few of those, especially dating back to the 13th, 14th, 15th century Tibet.
Fascinating.
Yeah, the search engine could just go right in there. I don't know if you call it a search engine. It's called Copilot. And it's Microsoft's entree into the AI.
And it also uses ChatGPT-4.
Copilot? It could be, and maybe, I don't know. That's a good question, Bobby.
I think it's using that as the core search, or the AI, the core AI part of Copilot.
4.0?
Yeah, because Microsoft owns both of them.
So why not, right? To use the latest in 4.0 technology. Okay, well, there you go. So it's a great one to play with. Thumbs up on that. Now, we watched the Democratic National Convention last night a little bit. Billy came over.
Yeah, right. We watched it with Billy Sunshine. He's actually doing a show simultaneous today with ours. He's working with Jack. Do you remember Jack's last name? Who used to also be at KCO, and he's moved up to Seattle now. Yeah, right. Jack Stein. That was his name.
He's on the air about this time of the day.
Yeah, he's all grown up. He's a professional radio guy now. He's got a real radio job in Seattle, Washington.
Yeah. Getting paid a good salary in the whole 9 yards. Huh?
Yeah, well, he's committed. Young and doing it for a living. Right. So,
it's nothing like succeeding in a dying business.
No, spoken word is not a dying business.
Spoken word is not a dying business.
I mean, business is a dying business, right?
Radio, come on.
All right.
How long is that going to last?
The good news is we have a caller. Just
change the topic
on time, spot on.
All
right. Let's say hello. Hello. How are you doing there? Is that Ryan?
It sure is.
Hey, Ryan.
Fantastic.
Ryan.
Yeah, we got Bobby on who knows you as well, Bobby Wilder.
Yeah, it's Ryan.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to the show.
Yeah, Ryan Sarnataro, one of the founders of Rainbow Foods in San Francisco. Going back.
Among your many claims to fame.
Every day.
Yeah, Bobby went there every week.
Yeah, so I actually showed up a few months after they started, but I was certainly a key figure in the first 15 years.
Yeah, the face of Rainbow Grocery. But
the biggest collection of Tibetan bowls I've ever seen.
Yeah, well, that is one of Ryan's claims to fame. Why don't we just not jump into politics, but let's talk about anything you want to talk about, Ryan. And among them, you have the most amazing Tibetan bowl collection for people to purchase. What's your website again?
BestSingingBowls.com.
Okay.
BestSingingBowls.com.
Yeah.
All right.
And they really are.
Quite easy to find.
Yeah. So
now, our understanding is that you are an RFK supporter in this election?
Yes. He's the only one making sense to me.
How so?
The other two candidates, I can see both of them doing lots of bad things. I'll read an RFK quote about the two candidates. He says, "No, they won't dismantle our democracy within their term. The resilience of American institutions is formidable. Their presidencies simply will not set to veer away from the the well-worn path of politics as usual. And I see politics as usual as moving our country down the path of degeneration. And just like, and Bobby is talking about health, just think if the government was actually involved in the healing process rather than the drug discovery process, the symptom suppression process.
Universal health care, like so many other countries have already.
Well, not Obamacare. Obamacare was supposed to be.
Yeah, not so much universal health care in terms of access. You got Obamacare, which is basically giving the insurance companies a way to be in the middle between us and our providers. But really changing the paradigm of medicine to one which is all-encompassing of the lifestyle factors that are contributing to the massive increase in degenerative disease and chronic health conditions. For instance, in 1960, 6% of American kids had a chronic health condition. Now it's 60%. How does that happen? It happens significantly due to government inaction in arresting the causes of the slide, let alone government inaction in discovering what they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, when we have a captured government working for an industry that tries to sell drugs as mandated products that can be paid for by the government, and all that they have to do is get the government to insist that the parents give them to their children or that the doctors give them to the elderly, we're not living in a free society. We're living in a company town that's sending all the money to Big Pharma.
And Big Pharma is sending that money to other places, especially to the media, where a significant portion of the media gets its largest, if not majority, contribution to advertising revenue from the drug industry. So no wonder your coverage of issues related to drugs is skewed away from any level of criticism.
Yeah. So how do you see that shifting? How could that transition occur, the paradigm shift?
Well, first of all, you have to have somebody at the top who believes that a paradigm shift is necessary. I think if you talk to a lot of people, and maybe even people in your audience, you'll realize, maybe not your audience, but the general audience, you realize that many of the issues, whether it's censorship, whether it's the paradigm in drugs, whether it's what's happening in agriculture, not to mention war and peace, are ones that they're not really aware of the deeper issues, because those deeper issues are they're not front of mind. In terms of what is on top of the newspapers and what people are seeing, a lot of it is the horse race of the presidential race. It's the war porn about the Ukraine. A lot of stories there that are exciting, but they shed heat instead of light.
That's a good way of putting it.
Would you say that Bernie Sanders, in terms of mainstream politicians, is fairly close to in his philosophy to RFK?
Yes and no. I think there are areas of overlap, but I don't think that Bernie is as strong on corporate capture. I don't think he's anywhere near as strong on food systems, medical systems, and agriculture. And when I say as strong, I mean he wasn't out there in his campaign going after those issues as much as he was going after the economic issues that are affecting the middle class and the degeneration of the middle class. And that's where I think that the two of them overlap. But if you're talking about going after the national security state in the way that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. would if he was president, which not only includes significant reduction of the budget, something that Bernie would sign on for, but really a wholesale reordering of the nature of the national security state in terms of whether it's an aggressive projection of American power around the world and continues to overthrow democratically elected governments or whoever our corporate interests don't like. That I don't think was really so much in the center of what Bernie is talking about. So I think the way I look at RFK is that he's like Bernie plus.
Because Bernie also feels like we're being distracted by all these silly stories when we're not really looking at the important issues like healthcare and education and the economy.
Health.
Starting with the health element. Because without
education.
health, you have nothing. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that I've heard Bernie talk at all about censorship.
Yeah,
and
that's a huge one.
And recently, there was a case that went to the Supreme Court on censorship. And in this case, the censorship is the U.S. government coercing through threatening to change regulations the major platforms, Google and Facebook, to remove content. And going back to what Sun was saying about the definitions of misinformation, malinformation, but eliminating malinformation. And that case went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court kind of punted on it. It was 6-3 with all the liberals against it and half the conservatives. They punted because they said, well, it wasn't standing here, which is one of the ways the Supreme Court decides not to have a decision until somebody brings a case that's, really in your face.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea that they did not prevent the government from saying to private companies, don't put content up that we don't like, that is a real break in the First Amendment.
Mm-hmm. Now, you're talking about that was where the state of Missouri sued the Biden administration?
Yeah, that was one of the cases, yes.
Yeah, the 6-3 decision was actually to determine that the government had violated the First Amendment by directing those, by basically staffing those organizations with people from the government who were making those decisions, and that was not acceptable under the Constitution. But then after they found that the government had violated the Constitution, there was some kind of a stay so that they were not prevented from doing it again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a stay based on standing. They needed a stronger case to make an absolute determination. They needed somebody who was directly harmed, and they determined that most of the people involved in the case weren't directly harmed. And that's really getting down into the weeds on it. But, the whole idea that the government is actually in that business, and the Kennedy platform is one of transparency. It's one of eliminating those kind of actions on the part of the government. If we go through his platform, what you're seeing there is, I guess I'll go back a step. I met Kennedy more than 10 years ago for the first time in my more environmental guise. And then when this campaign got started, I decided, I'll go see what the guy is about. And I must say that I became enthralled, and I became enthralled with the idea that it actually is possible to have an American renewal, and that American renewal could be part of a worldwide renewal. It's a matter of taking deeply held values and putting them in front of monetary gain and using the power of the government to bring those values down to the level of the people. That was just enthralling for me. I was like, wow. This is what I want. And that's how I got on board.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. I'm curious if you have any thoughts on what Tulsi Gabbard is publicizing these days about her lawsuit against the government for being put on a no-fly list as a form of violation of her free speech.
I'm not familiar with that case.
You're not familiar with that. Okay. What would you say RFK is saying about the violations of free speech right now? I mean, as somebody who can't get himself on the ballot, or he can't get any kind of press except for malicious propaganda. What is he saying?
Well, there's two sides on that. One is that he says he's the First Amendment absolutist. That is, he doesn't believe that it's the government's right to interfere in free speech. I have subscriptions to the New York Times and the Washington Post, so I get to see what the mainstream press is putting out on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. And what's happening there, as you were alluding to before, is that in the case of Robert Kennedy, there's no substantial reporting on his positions, any of his policy papers. None of that is there. All that is there is that innuendo that you're talking about. Now, you can't force the papers to cover something, not something that RFK would be in favor of. But in terms of putting people on no-fly lists or basically curtailing their rights because of what they say or believe would be fire in a theater exception. That's not something he would go for at all.
Uh-huh. Listen, Ryan, we're going to have to take a little sponsor ID break, and then we're going to be back. I hope you can stay and continue this conversation. I think it's really great to try and even the playing field a little bit, since I agree with you that Kennedy is really the only candidate in the running right now who seems to be focusing on policy issues. Everybody else seems to be playing some other entertainment game.
Yeah, and we'd like to hear your opinion on the idea that he's a spoiler vote.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, so hang tight.
Will do. Policy doesn't win, but policy is what rules.
Good point. All right, folks, here are some Santa Cruz Voice sponsors. Stay tuned, and we'll be back in a couple minutes. Okay.
Treehouse dispenses not only the finest cannabis products, but information to those who want to know how to use cannabis for maximum benefit. Hello, I'm Jenna. If you would like to know how best to use cannabis, ask your friends and neighbors at Treehouse Dispensary, 3651 SoCal Drive. If you're 21 plus with a valid ID, no appointment is necessary and the information is free. Order online at ourtreehouse.io and pick up at our drive-thru. See you soon.
Time to eat and talk business. Chef Ben here from the Back Nine Grill and Bar, inviting you to talk business over a leisurely lunch or a formal dinner or maybe a quick libation. The Back Nine is the easiest place to get to in Santa Cruz County. Easy off the Pasatiempo exit with ample parking and great food. The Back Nine is the place to meet for business and great food. Time to eat and talk business. See you at the Nine.
Hey, Warren, you know it's been a while since I've been up to your showroom and garden center in Scotts Valley. Maybe the folks out there might want to know where you are.
Absolutely. To find Knox Roofing and the Knox Garden Box Company, just head up into beautiful Scotts Valley. We're at 46 El Pueblo Road, next door to Scarborough Lumber and the beautiful nursery. And when it comes to wood items, we have It's All About Wood gift shop. And, of course, the Knox Garden Box. Lots to look at. We'd love to see you at Knox Roofing and the Knox Garden Box store. Okay, thanks, folks.
The Hook is California's first ever cannabis outlet. 100% locally owned and operated, we're here to be your friendly neighborhood hookup. We believe that everyone should have access to fairly priced cannabis. So we work hard to get it to you for 30 to 50% less than the other guys. If you're 21 or older with a valid ID, visit us in Capitola or in Watsonville today. We're here to be your friendly neighborhood hookup. Check out our website.
Welcome back, everybody. And let's go back to our callers. And we've also been joined now by Bobby and Ryan. Hi, everybody. Yeah. Everybody hear each other?
Hi.
Bobby? Yeah. Bobby, Ryan, all right. All right, good.
Yes. Ryan, it was great to see you in San Jose last fall when they had the RFK rally in San Jose. I surprised to see other Santa Cruz people. I think Rachel was there too.
Rachel Fresco.
Anyway.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. A lot of people are concerned that RFK could be a spoiler vote. How do you address that yourself?
Well, polling that I've seen shows that he is really drawing equally from both Trump and Biden.
Equally? Really? Well,
and so,
why would that
But we don't know yet about Kamala, right? It's too soon to tell.
I mean, what about him appeals to Trumpsters?
Yes. Oh, gosh, quite a few things. The libertarian part of Kennedy, the really draining the swamp. I mean, instead of appointing swamp creatures the way that Trump did.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
His policy in terms of strengthening America's economic condition, vis-a-vis reducing the disparity in wealth by changing both public policy and tax policy, the investment of reductions in the military budget into, again, programs that will benefit the middle class and also pay down the debt, which will help stabilize the economy and reduce inflation. Things like that.
No tax on tipping.
That kind of cheap stuff, that's like, I'm going to throw some kind of a bone to you so that you'll vote for me because it's in your absolute limited personal interest. And so you've got both Trump and Harris saying, I'm going to do that great thing. And Meanwhile, if you look really deep into it, hey, pretty soon everything I earn is going to be a tip. So it's not really going to fly very well.
So
but
let me
that's political bribery, and that's not really the Kennedy way.
I want to address that question about the idea that he's drawing equally from both sides and why. I think that the aspect of the Trump voter that appeals to the Kennedy voter is his legal positions on the way that he has been associated with the Children's Health Defense and his legal cases trying to show that vaccines have a special legal classification that allows Big Pharma to make them a huge profit center without ensuring that they're safe or effective. And he's sued Big Pharma many times to show that their supposed safety tests have not been done with placebo groups of unvaccinated people. And so their claims of safe and effective are not in alignment with the typical drug testing FDA standards that are not protected by being classified as vaccine, which is a military emergency drug classification originally conceived of to create emergency response and shortcut the various safety procedures. So RFK makes that case in the vaccine conversation, not that he's anti-vax, but that the way that the legal system is treating, quote, vaccination is not our traditional safe and effective way of classifying safe and effective drugs. So the Trump voters who are concerned about the mandates and the vaccination policies that challenge that would tend to go for Kennedy. On the Democratic side, I'd say that the Bernie voters who felt that the elites of the Democratic Party do not honor the popular vote of the people that are chosen by the mainstream Democrats, but are instead kind of given out as favors by this handler elite that felt robbed when Bernie didn't get selected instead of Hillary. Those kind of voters feel like there's a problem with the Democratic Party, that they're operating as a kind of a shadow government, and that Biden is obviously a puppet who's maybe being told what to do by someone else that's not a parent. And so the people who see those political issues that way would tend to think of RFK as somebody who's a more honest choice.
On border security, his position is a reassertion of control over the border, especially from the drug cartels, through the use of advanced technology, strategic barriers, and a significant increase in the number of asylum judges to swiftly process claims. He's going to work closely with the Mexican government to address the root causes of migration, and he's going to seek to create conditions in Central America that encourage people to stay and survive in their home countries. And that kind of two-pronged approach, close the border, work within the legal framework, and also deal with the root causes, though, of course, climate change is a very difficult root cause to deal with, I think also appeal to that Trump voter. If I go back to the core question here, is he a spoiler? My own perspective is a spoiler from what? Is he a spoiler from a Harris administration that's going to continue the corporate oppression of the American economy and the American middle class?
This one or the one before?
Or is he a spoiler against a Trump administration that's going to be a predatory administration that goes in many different directions?
Well, yeah, fair point.
Good and many bad.
Yeah, I mean, both of them are don't exactly AAA quality here. Is there a path in which Kennedy could actually win? Is there anything? What do you see as the most ideal outcome?
Well, the most ideal outcome would have been for Kennedy to have been in the Democratic debates in a proper primary and had the people choosing who the Democratic candidate.
Obviously, he didn't have that freedom. Marianne Williamson was complaining too. It's pretty much a rigged system.
Yes. The ideal would be if the blinders came off of the public and they were exposed to who Robert Kennedy is. Instead, when I talk to people, it's the latest worm or bear story.
Yeah, right. Well, what do you do about that? I mean, you counter it with counter propaganda?
I thought his responses have been absolutely brilliant, that RFK has been doing TikToks and Instagram comedy spoofs addressing the charges.
But on the bear? there in Central Park?
Yeah, I actually haven't seen his response. Well, his response to that one was to just take responsibility for it. I mean, it's a weird story no matter what you do. But no, I thought that the way he handled the eating the dog story was pretty funny.
It wasn't really a dog he was eating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was preparing he was
one
sharing
of his
his steak
clips-
dinner with his dogs to apologize because they got a hold of some fake news and they were mad at him. I mean, it was funny.
Well, I guess that's a good response, is some good humor with it. You don't see much of that.
I know. He's the only one with a sense of humor. And
There's a
he's
lot
the
of
only one who's literally sharing his policies with, when he speaks, he tells you what policies he's going to put in place. So you actually know what he stands for. Everybody else is really just playing a popularity contest and smearing the other guy. So.
Is there any way he can win some of the Electoral College?
Well, you have to get enough votes in a state in order to do that. I'm sanguine about his potential here at this
at the actual
stage where he continues to be shut out. One of Kennedy's quips is that he has so many skeletons in his closet, if they all came out and voted for him, he would win. So,
I heard that he might be offered a position on the Trump cabinet. Now, if he could get another position on the
Democratic
Harris's cabinet, that would be pretty cool.
I think that was a fake news story that cycle.
Really?
About the Democrats. But he did meet with Trump at the beginning of the Republican convention, and they had a conversation, and Trump said a few good things about him, as he usually does.
Okay. And we haven't heard a similar story about the Democratic convention, at least so far, right? Has he even gone to it?
Where would the Democrats put him? At least in a Trump administration, there are places, be it the CDC or USDA, where he would be actually, or EPA, where he would actually be in line with their value system.
Well, he might be able to do something about the pipeline. RFK might be able to handle some of the issues around the environmental controls and the pipeline, right? Since so much of the constitutional protection of the environment has kind of been gutted under some of the recent Supreme Court rulings, it would be good to have somebody like RFK there talking about how we could defend the environment using the Constitution. I think the Democrats could figure out a place for him to do that.
Well, yes, resurrect the administrative state. Maybe they would be able to employ him for that.
He's the one who said that the Constitution interpreted as the national agenda is very good unless you have corporate capture. But for the last 50 years, it's been very helpful in protecting the environment, whereas it's been very bad about giving all of the profits of the corporate state to big pharma, and the captured government is doing the bidding of the state, not of the people.
In the area of food and agriculture, one of the grave disappointments of the Obama and Biden administrations has been the appointment of Tom Vilsack, who was known as Mr. Monsanto when he was back in his home state, to head it. And the degree to which the USDA has eroded organic integrity and the degree to which they have gone against small farms by promulgating regulations that only scale will allow you to implement. These kind of things that are going around under the hood are the kind of things that Kennedy's got a handle on, and he would have an entirely different approach. But you can't expect a Democratic administration, which is beholden to these particular interests, to even consider doing anything about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do you think at this moment, looking forward, is the other side of the election looking like? Now, I'm not asking you to pick a winner. I'm just saying, like, given that the election is going to happen and we're going to be on the other side, what do you think might happen?
Well, it depends on whether, if Trump was to lose and it was a very lopsided loss, that's one thing. But otherwise, I think that we're in for a period of instability, attacks, all kinds of, you can say, anti-democratic efforts to put Trump in even if he doesn't win.
So it's kind of a rerun of 2020?
Will create instability. Yeah, well, they don't get January 6th, but whatever kind of back and forth and loud noises and weirdness happens. So that's the immediate thing. The most disturbing thing about a Trump administration to me is the threat to deport 15 million people, many of whom have been here their entire lives, except for a couple of years when they're a baby. And that will just wreck the economy, and it will just tear at the hearts of so many people. So that's what I see on the Trump side. On the other side, I could see, they're going to approve the WHO overregulation of pandemics, and then they can always declare some kind of emergency that then further curtails our liberties, and who knows where they might go with central bank digital currencies and other levels of control. Surveillance will continue. More of that. That's my take on what's going to happen on that side.
All right. All right. Well, we got a couple articles came in. RFK Jr. and the third-party effects are now hurting Trump. Yeah, some stories from, thanks, Gabs. RFK Jr. to drop out for Donald Trump, because apparently Trump is more likely to be hit harder by RFK. It seems to be. All right, so that supports what we were talking about regarding his value to the Trump administration.
All right, well, listen, we have Taylor, who's been patiently waiting to chime in. So we seem to be getting some talk from folks who are listening to the show. So let's give him a chance to ask you a question, okay? Hello, Taylor. You got a question for Ryan?
I'm talking to you.
Hey. I'm talking to you.
Yeah.
And just remember, I got my finger on the volume.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think that there's no doubt that Kamala Harris is going to win, but the Trump is doing a lot of illegal things already. He's using AI. He's got images of fake Swifties for Trump T-shirts, and Taylor Swift pointing at, I want you to vote for Donald Trump, and outrageous kind of things that have no business in this campaign. And if you put together the black, Asian, women in America, she's going to win for sure. So I don't know why you're talking about Robert Kennedy. He's not going to win. What's the point of talking about Robert Kennedy?
All right. Well, thanks, Taylor. I appreciate your perspective. We gave you your time.
Free speech. Come on.
It is free speech.
Let Ryan respond to it.
Yeah. I want you to honor the fact that we have a guest, and you need to be directing some of your thoughts in that direction.
I was watching the Taylor Swift concert up until just about 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, so who is known, by the way, as a very big.
I thought it was an open-ended fun show. I didn't know it was about a guest.
Well, today we have a guest, and
the relevance of Robert Kennedy in this case are the issues that he's bringing up that the other candidates are not addressing, and just how important those issues are to the future of the country. That's the relevance of his campaign if he's not going to be the next president, which is, of course, extremely unlikely.
Yeah, and it might just keep him alive a little longer, because he has that Kennedy curse that he's so clear, he's so appealing, and he would be so popular if he were elected that some people might just decide to take him out.
Is it true that a lot of the Kennedy family doesn't support him?
Well, there's portions of the Kennedy family that don't and portions that do. But, of course, a certain portion of the Kennedy family are employed by the Democratic Party in various guises, and so their loyalties will be there. There's also, and I'm sure, a lot of people have this in their personal lives as well, his positions on vaccines are very much opposed by many people. Those people may be woefully uninformed, but nonetheless, those are very strongly held positions. And so those folks would also say, no, I'm not going to support this guy, even if they're in your family.
It really is an amazing race where the choices are so different from each other. They're so distinct. It'd be really nice if we had the kind of America before 2020 where it was expected that people would not be at each other's throats. They would just take the results of the election and say better luck next time.
I do think it's important to get clear as to what his position is on some of these issues too. Like, I have heard him specifically address the vaccine issue, saying that he's essentially not an anti-vax person.
No, he's an informed person, but many vax people and unvaxxed people are not informed. And they're polarized before they get information, so they can't hear information.
Yeah. The other criticism I've heard is that he seems to have a lot of inside intelligence information, suggesting he's like Bobby the Op.
Well, that's the no agenda perspective.
Yeah, there are a lot of people that
he's supported by the CIA to make sure that it's either Trump or Kamala, whichever perspective they're defending at the moment,
Yeah, where is he getting all this inside information?
I think it's crackpot and buzzkill. It's just prognosticating. I don't think it's inside information.
What do you think, Ryan?
No, I don't think he has. I mean, he has access to people within those agencies that might tell him a few stories. But in terms of what the real big things, I don't think he's in some kind of a pipeline there. His campaign manager, Amaryllis Fox, is ex-CIA. She's got quite a good book out there. But going back to the vaccine, he says he's a vaccine safety advocate as opposed to anti-vax. Yeah. It just so happens that if you're a vaccine safety advocate and almost no vaccine is safe, then you're going to end up being anti-vax.
Yeah, because de facto, they're not safe.
Well, you're just going to know that there's a lot of misinformation about vaccines being safe and effective, and that they've never been proven safe and effective because they've never been placebo tested. And there was a Supreme Court case that was just decided recently that says that is the case, that they have never been placebo tested safe and effective. So you can't make that claim. It has been wonderful having this conversation with you all. I feel like we've had a whole bunch of diverse perspectives that you will not hear anywhere else. Ryan, you're just a jewel of information. I want to thank you so much for calling in. Everybody else, Ryan, too. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. We'll have to have you back again as the election goes on.
Yes, as this thing heats up.
To get the third-party perspective.
How can this third-party candidate affect the election in good ways?
Well, and beyond just that horse race, like what important races should we be paying attention to here locally? I know you've got a lot of thoughts on the most important issues here in town, too. So let's table that for another day, but let's have a conversation about Santa Cruz.
Who's going to move the rail trail forward? All right. Well, thank you, Ryan. I appreciate your attention.
Yeah. Anything you want to promote, Ryan, since we got a minute or two before we say goodbye?
You have a 40 kilohertz Tibetan bell, for example, that would help us with our Alzheimer's?
Yeah, 40 hertz is a little bit low.
Oh, okay.
And 40 kilohertz is a little bit high, whichever one it is. And if I did plug my website, bestsingingBowls.com, you can go there. There's a tremendous amount of information. And you can literally play 400 bowls, and you can put together in groups and ring them together and just have a great time with it. Yeah. So enjoy yourselves out there.
So you actually can hear the bowls online? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I've got 2 recordings for each of over 400 bowls.
Really?
And one recording is it's struck with a mallet. The other one is spun around the rim with a stick. And with the stick, you get to bring out specific overtones. You can play the main tone that you hear, then the next highest, and then the next highest. You'd be amazed. You get this bowl that's really deep, and it's got this really high sound hidden in it. And that's part of the soundscape that your brain is appreciating in the complexity of the soundscape.
Yeah, it sounds like it's kind of sounds that would be hard to get through the media alone. A lot more subtleties.
Complexity has a way.
Yeah, it has a certain value to it.
Oh, Ryan Sarnataro, it's been a pleasure. Santa Cruz Voice, we love you. Friends and fans and listeners, have a great future now.
Enjoy that DNC this week.
All right.
We'll be in Maui next week. Yeah,
we'll here today, gone to Maui. See you after.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Good night.
Yep, bye-bye, Bobby.